Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm joined by the also wonderful Bernadette.
Hi
She's
guys.
my friend.
Hi.
Yeah, we've been friends since university. We've come a long way, and she has been a vital. Guys, ignore the children in the background. But yeah, she's been of great help in my spiritual life, in my spiritual growth, and all of that, especially in the early times, in the early years. I used to follow her around basically, and she was like a mother figure too, and all of that. So yeah, she's very dear to my heart, and till today we are still kicking it. So
Yes.
yeah, maybe you can say a thing or two about yourself.
I'm Bernie, one. I am turning 27 years old, so I'm 3 years away from turning 30, guys. Yeah, and I like music.
That is awesome. Yeah, we actually here for like a music meeting and stuff like that. But as she was on her way, I'm like, I know Bernie and I are going to delve into some interesting convos. So let me keep my equipment nearby. And as it turned out, like we didn't even plan for it or anything. I'm like, oh my word, let me get this recording equipment. Yeah, so maybe we'll just continue having our conversation from where we left off. Oh yeah, I was saying like we're talking about relationships, by the way. It's a hot topic for youth nowadays, because I was like, okay, it's funny how things change as you and your friends grow. You all evolve. First you're talking about school, then you're talking about this, now it's about marriage, then you're talking about this and all of that. So yeah, and then we were talking about like hearing from God. And sometimes, let's say you heard from God that, okay, this is your person, or sometimes not everyone will hear from God, because some relationships can evolve from, let's say, friendships, and all of that. And then what if you hear from God, but down the line there have been instances of people, okay, that have heard from God, but then down the line they were like, I don't think this is, they start to now doubt that they heard from God and all of that. And then you actually wonder, was it actually God? Was it you? Because nowadays everything can be, I heard from God, or God said.
That's true. And I think it's always such a dangerous, it's not, let me put it this way. I always tell people, if someone approaches me saying that they heard from God that I'm supposed to be their wife, that is a red flag for me.
How come?
Number one, there's always that uncertainty of whether God really did speak to you. Because you don't want to get into this thing of you get into a relationship and then things don't work out. I'm not saying that God didn't speak. Sometimes it's just the two people aren't willing to commit to push through whatever struggles that they might be going through.
Let me disturb you a bit. Okay, for me, when I said it does not work out, it means for me it does not. Okay, this is not for her, but for me, I meant like, let's say you tried out dating or you tried out courting, but it did not end up in the marriage state.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for her it might mean something else, but I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, yeah. If you put it in that sense, then I understand why you said it that way. But initially for me, I'm just like, we always hear from a lot of people when they're like, yeah, but God said. And then when things work out, or there's like a small storm that comes, and then the other person is not willing to commit, and then we are so like, but did I really hear from God? But you did hear from God in the first place. He confirmed it with you. Secondly, it's also just that it's just creepy, guys, man. Like, it's really just creepy for someone to be like, you, God told me that you should be my wife. I'm like, man of God, I'm also a woman of God. God can also confirm to me. And he didn't, So you sometimes see a lot of, and I've seen this happening with some people, where they've ended up being in relationships that have been abusive because this is what this person said, or this is what the church has told them, that this man is from God. But in fact it was just sheep in woven sheep's clothing. This person wasn't really from God. And then already it's a thing of manipulation, man. Like your choice or your free will to be objective is taken away from you, because it's like, oh my gosh, like, you know, God spoke to this person. So even sometimes you'll always question, there'll always come that question, but God, maybe you did speak to this person, especially if you're in a position where you really want to get married, like really want to get married, and you're not cautious. It ends up being a situation where you are sort of manipulated into it without even knowing. And you're like, I willingly gave in, but anakam.
But I feel that is very, like, it's kind of foolish, because you know where you stand.
Yeah.
One day I was even rebuked by one of the pastors at Emmanuel Church. It was nothing about relationships or anything, but I think we're talking about the dynamics of a husband and a wife. And then I mentioned something like, okay, no, the husband is kind of like the head of the home and what. But I think the way it came out was as if it was like the husband is the only one who has to hear from God. I think that's the way it came out. Now I told my friend, no, everybody has to hear from God, whether you are the husband, whether you are the wife, and all of that. And it starts out from the beginning. What are you getting yourself into? And because of that, many people, like you are saying, this person comes to you claiming that they heard from God, and then because of that, let's say it's abusive. They may be not physically abusing you, but then it's abusive. You can see the red flags, you know, and then you can't go out because you are like, God said. You know, God said. And that is where I question that even if God did say, and then it turns out to be completely chaos. This is now before marriage state. It's completely chaos, and it ends up being wolf in sheep's clothing. Will you have the boldness or the courage to do the right thing? You know, maybe you can pray about it, but in most certain circumstances, your mind is also usually clouded, so you can't think straight. But
it's really true, man. And I think that's where the importance comes in of a character test or character check, which then comes back to the whole thing of preference versus purpose sometimes. Because you prefer a certain type of person, but is that character aligning with what God says? Does this person have patience? You know, is this person loving? Is he kind? Is he gentle? You know, and that's where Kevin was now coming in, like, test the person. Don't just fall in love with the fact that, oh, he's handsome, he's a man of God, he goes to church, he serves in church, he speaks in tongues, he's very prophetic, he was in the heavenly of heavenlies, he saw the throne room of God and whatnot. But where are the fruit? You know, you'll know them by the fruit. Like, where are the fruit? Is this person loving? Is this person kind? Is he gentle? How does this person act, you know, in such situations? And I remember watching something, a preacher, Creflo Dollar, and I will never forget what he was talking about that day. He was like, ladies, you need to start asking people questions. He was like, do you beat up on people when you get angry? Do you live with your mother? What does your savings look like? Do you have medical aid? Do you like showering once a day? Or do you like going without showering?
The whole weekend.
The whole weekend, you know? And I think for me, the highlighting part that really stood out for me was, do you beat on people when you get angry? Because it's very easy to fall in love with the romanticism of a person, that when you get behind closed doors and it's just the two of you, when this person gets angry, he's breaking things.
You don't know what happened.
You don't know what happened. So I think for me, it's very important that I'm not saying test the person to like extreme, like push them over the edge, but pray and ask God to set up situations where this person's character can be shown. Yes, I am well aware that, you know, it takes time for people to bear fruit, and that Holy Spirit is the one that works in them in His time and pacing. But I'm very sure that it's also very fine to ask God to set up situations
No,
so you
really.
can see the character.
And it reminds me of a situation, and this is a tip to everyone out there. When you are getting to know people, like I've asked God before, I'm like, Lord, show me so and so's true colors. And really, it didn't even take time. Like within a week, I knew and I knew and I knew. And in situations that I'll never forget, where God just comes and He, through situation, I didn't even have to say bring the situation. The situation brought itself, and through that, I saw the person's character, and I knew that it was an answer to my question. So especially if you are trying to do this God's way, don't forget to pray. Don't forget to pray. And sometimes you are praying, but it seems as if it's blocked. That is also another thing to question, because probably God is not in the situation at all, But then the moment maybe you distance yourself from the situation, then you start to hear God's voice again. So it's there are always things to look at, things to question. God, He must be in the situation. But I know that when I ask God, show me, He would always show me. He would always show me. And because I prayed, I know that, okay, this is now the character showing itself. That was number one.
No, that's very important, guys. Like, sure. Because in all honesty, we always see people like, oh my gosh, he's so dreamy, he's all this, but we don't know the true person. And another thing, I feel like this weekend was very fruitful. I was in Swakop for a youth camp, and one of the pastors was really just sharing tips about relationships, which is very, very important. One of them was like, do background checks. Because for him, he's like, whenever people come to him saying that they want to get married and that he should officiate the weddings, he always does background checks. I was like, okay, somehow I'll find someone that knows either one of you, and I'll ask them, what is this person like? Because you portray yourself to be someone to the person that you want to marry, but
Exactly.
in the background, this is how you are with your friends, and this is how you are with other people. And Namibia is such a small country, that I think it's very possible. I'm not saying do a whole background check on how the person's life is from birth until now, but it would be so nice if we could find out, how does this person treat other people? What is this person like? This person's going to church here, and this is how we know
And
them.
they're even preaching.
And they are preaching.
And they know the word.
And they know the word, my dear. And
telling
I
you,
can't
they are
there. On the other side, they are fires.
They are there. They are there.
So I think it's very important to do background checks as discreetly as possible, to just find out, okay, can other people back up this person's character? Like how you're talking about based on 2 or 3 witnesses. Can other people attest to the kind of character that he has before you actually get into the relationship?
And the thing is that also, especially like, it's like, for example, someone says that someone who's always complaining about other people, no, with this person was just like this, and then they come, no, this person was just like this person was just like, how do they react in that situation? What about them? Because, for example, they come and then you share many things, and then they share maybe their past relationships with you, and then they are always blaming the person. What about them? Because they'll be the exact same way to you as they were to that person.
Yeah. But like, one of the things that we also don't look at, and I know we are at a stage where we want to get married and whatnot, but it's something that I mentioned over this weekend. Why don't we also talk about things like celibacy, or you're just meant to be, I'm going to use the term a eunuch now, because it's I'm not saying that we shouldn't get married. It's not what I'm saying. Like, I want to get married, but
You say a eunuch.
it's very interesting how we never consider that possibility, that maybe God has really just called me to be single and to really just focus on what He has called me to do.
It's true.
You know, I'm not forcing anyone that they should get married and whatnot, but that is something that we don't talk about as well.
That's true.
And as much as we talk about marriage, but yeah, guys, we want to get married.
No, it's true. And to think of it, it's conversation that has not really been touched a lot. I think, but then I also see that I think people base it on their desire, and then they decide, okay, no, if it is my desire, let me pray about it. And then you see that this person keeps praying and praying and praying and praying. And like I know in West Africa and maybe many other African countries, people pray for marriage. They are like, I reject and I rebuke delayed marriage. And what. So I think people will attribute it to spirituality if they are not getting married. But then I don't think anybody or not many people really take out the time to ask God, like, do you want this for me? And all those things. So it's quite a complicated situation.
Yeah.
And
yeah, man, it's really something, because like I like how my sister sometimes puts things, and it really just made me think about why don't we not even that, why don't we, maybe it's a contradictory statement, how we are always told, or she was always told, that Prince Charming would come. Save yourself for Prince Charming. Prince Charming will come and get you. That's what most of the time we are told in church. Like, yeah, no, you'll get married and this and this. Number one, we never consider whether it really is God's will for us to get married. Yes, He did create us to be fruitful and multiply. He really did. I'm not saying He didn't. But there's also that aspect that there are some people that God really just has called to remain single for the rest of their lives. It's a thing, but we never want to consider it, because we think like, no, this is the notion that we grew up with, and this is the norm, and this is how it is supposed to go.
One thing I heard about that long time ago, many years ago, I think it was 2013 or if not 2014. Like, I used to wonder, I'm like, Lord, do you actually want me to get married or not? And then I don't know who it was, someone, I asked the person many years later, and they don't remember if they said such a thing, but they said such a thing of, the Lord gives us the desires of our hearts. So if it is your, let's say, and He knows that you let's say you desire to get married one day, He would not give you the desires of marriage if He called you to be single. So they said something in that line which really just made me wonder. But at the end of the day, again, like, who knows? One could be controlled by the flesh, but also, it's I don't know.
It's very something interesting. I think it was just a thought. It was just, honestly, for me, it was just a thought. I'm like, but you're always talking about marriage, so what happens in the situation for the people that don't want to get married? So now I'm sitting in a situation where I feel I need to get married because everyone else is doing it, but deep down inside, I'm just like, I'm very content with just being single.
No, I mean, if you don't want to, then
there's no pressure.
That's
very interesting.
That's a personal preference. But if you do want to, like, I'm just like, take your desires to God, my friend.
And don't rush into it.
Yes.
Get to know the person. Like, honestly, get to know the person.
Because a marriage counselor once said, don't rush. You don't know. Like, I'm the one on the other side of that counseling. I've seen people, this now in the words of the lady, I've seen people rush into marriage because of age, because of pressure from family. But at the end of the day, 2 years down the line, 5 years down the line, that counselor is the one that sees the pain of especially those ladies who come to her, and especially even men who come to her because of problems that are arising because they just jumped into it with anyone and they were not sure whether they are born again, whether they are not, you know. So yeah.
That's true. Oh, but one thing, like Kevin was sharing, man, and he was very open about having gone through depression. And the one thing he was sharing about that made me laugh, he was like, when I was going through my depression, I didn't want to read the word. He didn't want to read the word. He wanted to pray. He'd be lying in bed and his wife would be reading the word and he'd just be there listening. And then he went to say something. It's like, he was like, Lord, had I married that sister from Netherlands, would you be reading the word to me like this in the time that I needed it? You know, and I'm just like, are we in relationships with people that we know? And I know it's not just for us. It's obviously you are there to help each other. And it's not just that it needs to be the one person that does it, but we both need to be in that position where we do it. But where the other person is going through struggles in life, or they are going through storms or whatever difficulty it is, are we in such a position where we are like, you know what, God, I'm going to trust you to help me help this person? Or is it just going to be a thing of, this person is not showing interest in me anymore, this person is what, and then you want to leave and walk out on the person? I feel like when you get into a marriage, those are the kind of things that you guys really get to go through. And it's not always going to be sunshine and roses. You know, there are going to come points in time where people are really dealing with things in life, and you will have to be that spouse to be able to help this person through it, you know. When this person doesn't feel like getting out of bed, you'll be the one telling them, you know what, you need to get out of bed.
And even pray for them, my friend.
Pray for them.
I see people pray for their people, and you just are like, who else will pray if not you?
If not you. And then that's why he was like, you know what, Lord, I pray that these people, when they get the desires of their heart, they deal with it. Because you want this person, but when that person is going to go through things, are you still going to be sticking by that person faithfully the same way that God sticks with us? You know, because we are meant to extend the grace that God gave us to other people as well. So I think that is for me, that is very vital. So when people always come to me, but yeah, you want a guaranteed love, that's why you're not in a relationship. Like, yes, I want a guaranteed love. I want to be in a relationship with someone that I know that we will both commit until the end. And I don't think it's wrong to want that. So we always need to look at it, because I always used to think, like last year, there was someone who was in the north who showed interest in me for years. And it would always be in my case. But this person was not...
Why didn't you tell us? Why didn't you tell... Okay.
But the thing is, the person's not even a believer.
Okay. Yeah.
So for me, I'm already there, number one red flag. I'm not even going to try and put myself... It's not even an option. Because now you are there, darkness, light. It's either I go to the darkness or he comes to the light. And I'm sorry, guys.
You can't be dragging someone.
You know, I can't. I really just can't. It's something else when you're both in darkness, you get married, and then one comes to the light. That is something else.
Someone asked me, can't you make them born again? I'm like, no.
Only Holy Spirit can do that, my dear. And so this person was always showing interest, and after having gone through that depression last year, I really, at some point, I asked myself, would this person have been able to assist, to help me in the situation where I was? Would this person be able to... Already you are not born again, number one. So will I don't think you'd be in a position where you'd be able to pray or be able to try and understand. All your methods would have been very human methods, man. You know, and I'm just like... These are the things we need to look at. You know, just get up. Why are you going on? What? You know, all of those things. So those are things that I think that we always need. And that comes back to a person's character at the end of the day. Even if it's someone that is born again, that comes back to that person's character. You know, is this person still able to stand on their conviction, even through tough times? Are we still able, and it's a self-check also for us, because we can't just always put the burden on the other person. It's also me.
There you have to stay in the presence of God.
Yes.
Just to anyone out there, stay in the presence of God. stick and be committed to your prayer life, to your word study life, because only through that can you be changed and continue to be transformed. Because if you do not, then you will go back. I heard even Benny Hinn say this once. If he just spends 2 weeks and then you already see, like, even 2 weeks is a lot, but you will already see your old characters and your old habits coming out. So be committed to God first before anything else.
Before anything else. And that's very important. That's very important, because I don't think, because when you are in that situation, there is only one person that you can lean on, and that is God. Because you won't necessarily have the wisdom, or the other person won't necessarily have the wisdom on how to deal with the matter unless you get it from God. So yeah, guys, that was it for today. I thank you for having me, Tuli. I really enjoyed it.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure.
So stay committed to God. Ask God for help in whatever thing you need in your life, but also just ask for discernment and wisdom when it comes to relationships, and also just ask God for practical ways in which you can test a person's character. I think those are the things that I would highlight. So yes.
So you guys heard it from Bernie's mouth. Please do join us for our next video. From Bernie and myself, it's goodbye.
Bye.